Welcome to Artistic Adventures. We're going to keep going with our Baby Yoda project. This is episode 2. We're going to be continuing to work on his head. So let's go. All right, last video we had this blob and a couple of eyes. And so we want to try to start adding some features. And we're going to just do it in layers of clay. I did pull out my handy dandy pasta roller. This is a good one, but it does only roll into maybe 16th inch sheets, 8-inch sheets, not very thick. You can see right there. It's really truly a pasta roller as opposed to some of the other ones you can get a thicker piece rolled out of it, but it does a really good job. It's very sturdy, stainless steel. So we're just rolling out, conditioning these pieces as we go. I just roll them through there 4 or 5 times, doubling them over, and that conditions them really well. And it seems like this clay is pretty fresh. It's not crumbly or hard, so yay, Amazon. And also got some from Michael's too, which I think one of them is a little bit crumbly, but hopefully we can make it work. So we're just going to keep adding some of these layers, and I am going to speed through some of this because this was 2 hours and a half of filming. It actually took all day, but the actual film that I had was about 2 hours. So basically all I'm doing is just trying to get the head built up so that we have the overall basic shape that we want. And that means adding a lot of clay, especially to the back, because I did look at pictures of him and he has pretty much of, I guess, about the same depth as he does width. He's got a pretty deep head, so it's hard to see. A lot of the pictures are just face on, so sometimes I have to go back and actually watch episodes of The Mandalorian again just to see him from different angles and see things like his feet and his hands. This has been kind of an interesting project where you're not just looking at the straight on features, but I think the front part, mostly I'll be adding features. I did find this picture which kind of showed like that his ears are kind of in the middle, and then he does have those ridges that kind of go back, and it looks like the ears are kind of set back almost in the middle of the depth of the head. So I'll be looking at that when we start putting ears on, although I'm going to cast the ears separately because they're really big, and I think that is going to complicate me doing the silicone mold if I try to put them on the head and the body and everything and do it all at one time. I think I can do it. We'll see. We'll work it out. It's an adventure, right? So I'm just going to keep adding more pieces of clay, especially to the back, because I have to really make this head a lot thicker. Now, one of the things I would change if you're going to do this is I would make the aluminum foil underneath here bigger, because I made it sort of flat. It was wide but not very deep. So since it is a deeper head, I would add more aluminum foil. That way you don't have to waste so much clay. It also makes the head a little bit lighter as you're working with it. As we move into molding this with silicone, silicone's heavy too, so his head is going to be heavy. He's like 1/3 of him is head, and that'll be something to think about as we move down. I think he's going to need definitely some type of a stand, and I'm not sure what will work best, but when we get to that point we'll figure it out. Otherwise he won't be able to stand up, but I want him to be squishy, so we're getting more of that shape where he's kind of got a bump on the top and a couple of ridges, and the depth is looking a lot better. I was able to see a picture of the back of his head, this front part where we'll add nose and everything too, but he did have like this sort of roundy part there and a couple lumps on either side. But I can tell you, don't even worry about doing this part yet, because as we work on the face, it's going to be laying down and it's going to get all mushed up. So once you get to this part where you have the basic shape, don't worry about shaping the back part. Just go ahead and do the face part, and then you'll be able to work on it. So we rolled out more clay, and now we're going to start doing some things to add features. I think one of the most important parts of this project is getting the face right. If we can get this sweet little face, it'll be great. Now you see what I'm pointing to there. It's like the ridge, the nose kind of goes up to these ridges that have two bulbs and then extend over his eyes. So they're not, and they're sort of plain. They don't have any of the fuzz on them. So I'm going to start with putting a couple of pieces of clay over the eyes and then sort of positioning a blob, for the nose and a couple of other things just so I can see where I'm at and where I'm going. But I do want to work on these pieces more one at a time because it's easier to blend them than to have them all stuck up there. So kind of the way that I do polymer clay is I have the blank face, and then where there's things that stick out like noses and eyebrows or whatever, I'll put blobs of clay. As opposed to a sculptor who starts with a block of stone, let's say, and then chisels out the parts that he doesn't want, I sort of start with a blank center and then build up around that. Now, I've been working with polymer clay for many, many, many years. I'm not going to say I'm like the world's expert or anything like that. I'm just comfortable working with it, and I kind of know, its properties and how it works and everything. Now, when it comes to silicone, when we get into that part of it, I've never done it before. No, I can't say that. I have done it, but very, very, very small projects. Very, very small projects. This is going to be huge. And I have to say, I want to give complete credit to the videos by Carolyn Dowdy, who is a silicone baby artist. Her series, if you have time, and you do need time because she goes slow. She doesn't speed up the camera. She's very detailed. And wow, do I really appreciate her sharing her artistic knowledge with us. Is just so gracious of her to do that. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, the videos are awesome. And so when I start molding his silicone envelope mold and all that stuff, I'm going to be doing exactly what she taught. So I don't want you to think I'm an expert at that. This will be the first thing I've ever done. Now, if this goes well, I'm going to try to do a baby because I really would like to do one since my other reborn doll didn't turn out the way I thought. If you saw my reborn doll scam video, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, at this point, I'm just adding in more little ridges and things that I see on the picture. And as I do, I either start smoothing them down with my tool. This is my favorite polymer clay tool that I've had for probably 10, 12 years. And maybe probably 20 years. I don't know. Long time. And then use my finger to smooth things. Now, you can sand polymer clay, so if you're worried, that you're not getting it completely, smooth or flat, or that there could be fingerprints or whatever, it's not that bad of a deal because you can do some sanding on it if you want to. And trust me, I don't really feel like I'm good enough at it to come through this process without it needing a little bit of touch-up work. That's just part of the adventure. So we're just going to keep working on like those bulbs and the ridges, and those stick out, but they're not as tall as the very top of his head if you look straight on. Also, looking here at the mouth, that kind of protrudes some too. So we're going to add some clay up under the nose to give that upper lip the protrusion that we need, the amount of clay. I think the mouth is going to be really important to giving him that sweet look. So this will be, part of the hardest part, I think, is the mouth. The nose, a nose is a nose. As long as you get it pretty much the same shape, I think it's okay. It's a little button nose, a little baby nose. Anyway, I think it'll be fine. I wanted to say, too, as a follow-up to the Reborn Doll scam, I do appreciate those of you, especially in the Reborn Doll community, who commented and gave more information about this hobby, and also that a lot of people have noticed that this is a scam and are trying to warn people. And I really appreciate that. I think, the more we can do to help each other, the better. And I think the doll community, whatever facet of it, whether it's, the Blythes or the Reborns or Monster High, whatever, it's a nice group of people. Certainly different from the beauty community, which has a lot of drama all the time and people snipping at each other. I find that most doll people are nice people. They like to share. They're not mean and nasty on the comments, or at least I haven't found that to be. And I think that's great because I really feel that creativity is something that uplifts people and helps fulfill people and makes them feel better. And that's certainly one of the reasons that I'm doing this channel. And that brings me to another thing I want to talk about while we're sculpting here. And you can kind of watch as I talk. Those of you who have been aware of the controversy on YouTube about the COPPA laws, this is the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act that the FTC is forcing due to Google and YouTube capturing minor children's information without their consent. This is going to be a real tough thing to handle. I'm not sure how it's all going to turn out. It's effective January 1st. My channel, if I look at my analytics, is 100% adult. However, if you look at the law, which says you can't use anything that would interest children, you can't use things like dolls or crafts or bright colors or engaging music or sound effects or any of that stuff, I'd be breaking the law in that sense because I do, use dolls, which could interest people. I mean, even Baby Yoda here could interest children. But my subscribers pretty much are like me. They're either customizers or just appreciate the doll craft or collectors or just people who like this sort of thing, DIY stuff. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in January. I have looked at some other avenues to put my videos on, and I am probably going to do that. I know that there are petitions going around, and a great many people are doing that because they're signing the petition because there's a lot of people out there that have way more subscribers than I do, and they're making their living from YouTube. I'm not. I got $100 last year, and I may get $100 this year. I'm not sure from Google Ads, but I just don't have enough subscribers yet for it to, be that way. But I do have over 100 videos, and I put a lot of work and time into it. And I really, I hate to think that I would lose it. I hate to think I would lose this community. So I may be forced to say that my channel is, you have to choose whether you say your videos are made for children or not on your YouTube studio. And I have said that it's not because it's not. And I really don't want to lie. But, if I'm forced to face a $43,000 fine from the FTC, I guess I'll say that I will. Now, the bad thing about that is I will lose all my comments. You won't be able to make comments. You can't search for how to make Baby Yoda and see my videos come up. You can't search for any of my topics. It's a really bad thing, and I'm hoping that through letters that people have written and further evaluation that the FTC will come up with more specific guidelines than what they have right now. They're just too vague. And that's really the problem. The vagueness really leaves so many people open that are not trying to do anything other than make really cool videos for everyone that are not filled with profanity or, whatever, sexual innuendo. That can be watched by anybody that just enjoys DIY or any of that stuff. So, we'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated. I just wanted to let you know where I stand with this. I'm not going to put myself at risk, to be fined. If I have to make that change, I will, and I will look at other avenues. And if you're subscribed, I think, you'll probably still be subscribed after January. Despite that, it's just that people will have a hard time finding my channel from then on. So I will let you know if I go to other avenues. There are some other places like Facebook, not as developed as Facebook, but that might, be a new home for me. I don't know. And there's nothing saying that I can't put it both places or three places. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of update you on all that. I know there's been a lot of videos made about that, and a lot of people are upset about it, especially those who are going to be losing their livelihoods because what they do is, although not intended specifically for children, could be viewed by children, and even some of the ones that are for children. Possibly a lot of the reborn sites. I know a lot of the doll sites will probably be hit. So, just keep your ears open, and if you get a chance to sign that petition, they are out there on some of the videos. I don't have the link myself, but if I get it, I will try to put it in the description box, and help everybody out, because I think there's a lot of enjoyment in a lot of these projects that people have, and it's sort of sad that we might see all of these go by the wayside, or that you might want to look at, say, how to make a Marie Antoinette doll, and then you search for it and you wouldn't be able to find it. So just a little bit about that, and if you have comments about it, especially if you have a site, a YouTube channel, leave some comments about what your thoughts are and what you plan to do. And we're going to keep working on this Yoda project, though. What I'm doing right now is rolling out some little thin pieces of clay to make those little ridges around his eyes that are sort of like the ends of the eyelids, I guess. And trying to get the shape of the eyes right. It's a little more narrow near the nose, and a little more wider on the sides of the head. And hopefully I can achieve that look. Although, if it's a little bit off, it doesn't matter. I mean, everybody's not symmetrical. Like, my eyes are not the same size. So, don't worry about that if you don't get it exactly symmetrical and exactly right. We're just looking for the overall effect here, and that is, this little creature that's kind of innocent and, kind of has a little bit of a sense of humor. I don't know if you saw the 4th chapter in this Mandalorian yet, but that first part where he's pushing the buttons on the spaceship, and the Mandalorian guy's telling him not to do it, and he's like watching him, and he turns and pushes it anyway, is hilarious. It's like every kid you've ever known. Like, don't touch that, and they're just watching you, but they're going to touch it. So, that's what I want to try to get. I want to try to capture that look with his face. And then the body part, I can tell you, I'm already ahead of where I am with this video, because I want to work on it every day. I don't want to wait, each week, but I'm putting the videos up about once a week as I have time. But I have already made the body. I'll tell you, the body was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I thought, oh, well, nobody ever sees the body, so the body's not going to be that hard. But the hardest part was that you kind of got to hold the body as you're making it, because, you've got details on the front and back, and you got the feet, and you got the hands that are sticking out. And that kind of complicates how you're working on it. So like this face, I was able to just, plop the back down and work on just the front and not worry about it until I got finished. And then I was able to kind of hold the bottom of the aluminum foil, or cradle that bottom in my hand, and work on the back. But the back is basically just round. So that part wasn't really that hard. I really kind of enjoyed working on the face. It was really kind of neat. But if you're doing this, I want to warn you ahead of time that I found this clay to be kind of crumbly after you bake it. Now, the head I didn't have so much problem with, because there's not a lot of like small things sticking out like fingers or whatever. But the body, I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you this. not really going to be surprised then, but what the heck. I dropped it after I had put the head on. What I did is I baked the head first, and then I baked the body. And then I put the head on and kind of, put clay up around it and everything, and put glue down in the place, that hole where the aluminum foil handle kind of goes. And I thought, hey, I'm putting E6000 down in there. I left it overnight. Actually, I didn't leave it overnight. That's right. I left it for like a couple of hours. And then I put some clay around the neck. I got it smoothed out. I took it and baked it. As soon as I got it out, the head fell off. It was just so heavy. So if you don't want the head to fall off, support the head after you bake it. That was my first mistake. So I'm just telling you this now ahead of time because I've already experienced it. So you don't have to, because once I get to the end, and you guys may be making them too, and you may be ahead of me too with this video. But anyway, so this is right. That's right. I didn't glue it that time. I just put it on and put the clay around it. All right. So then I glued it, and then I put more clay around it, put it back in the oven, and I got it out, and I thought it had worked. So I was walking around holding it in my hand by the head, because the head's the heaviest part, with the body sticking up, thinking, okay, it's stuck. And I was walking around because I had to go get some sandpaper. I was going to sand a piece of it while I held it to make sure that it dried. And the body fell off. Well, I'm just lucky that the body fell on our living room rug, or it would have probably destroyed it, because this clay is a little bit crumbly. It's not really rubbery or strong. It's pretty crumbly. So both of the hands cracked off. One of the legs cracked at the hip. One of the arms cracked at the shoulder. A couple of toes were cracked off. A finger was cracked off. So we'll get into that saga, but I just want to tell you that, first of all, putting the head on, there's probably a better way to do it. And when I get to that part, I'm going to come up with something different, because just trying to glue it in or put clay around it, it's not going to support it. It's just too much clay. It's very heavy. And having that neck be the only thing that supports it, it's not going to be enough. Okay? So those are a couple adventures I've already had that I want to warn you about. I think we're kind of getting close to the end here. Not sure exactly, but looks like the face, we're getting pretty close to getting it to where we want it to be, and then we'll be able to put it in the oven and bake it. And I'll show you how I did that without messing it up, because whatever you put this head against is gonna indent into the clay. It's pretty soft. So what I'm doing at this point is just fine tuning. If I see a little place that I think, oh, that's not sticking out enough, like that cheek right there, I just plop some more clay on it and round it out. If I see a place that needs to be a little deeper, I'll do that. I'll just remold that. The other thing is, I don't think I showed doing this, but you have to put the sprue or the pour spout on the top of the head, because that's where we're going to pour the silicone. So I spend a lot of time, going in and making these grooves and making that, look nice. And then I forgot I had to put the sprue up on the top so we can pour the silicone in. But the tool that I'm using right there is pretty nice. It's got a silicone, sort of a hard silicone tip. So it helps when you're making these sort of indentions, so that it's not like a cut. It's more of a crease, if that makes sense. So I think that was a good tool. I have a couple of other, what am I saying? I've got 100 tools. I just don't use them all. I've accumulated them over the years. This is another silicone one, but it's like flat on the top, so I'm using it sort of as a leverage back and forth to make the opening in those grooves a little bit wider. But like I said, I'm going to be covering up most of them here in a minute to put the sprue in. And then when we cut the sprue off, we'll have to go in with some thickened silicone and try to recreate the look of that. And that'll be a whole nother adventure. See, this is going to be really a big project. It's going to be a huge project. It's actually bigger than what you're going to see because of all the mistakes that I made and all the damage that I did to my poor baby and having to fix it. Some of that is off camera. A whole lot of that is off camera. But I did want to show you how I fixed all the cracks and everything that I caused, because you might have the same problem. Or let's say, not with this one, but you might have them with something else. So if you're making a silicone baby. All right, so there's the sprue. It's just a big chunk of clay on the top. That's what we're going to pour through. And we're going to balance it on that when we're putting the silicone sheath on it, the envelope, coating it. So I got my pan. This is just a regular baking pan. And I'm going to put some just acrylic foam, fiberfill down in the pan. And I'm doing that because I wanted to lift the bottom of the sprue off of the hot pan just a little bit, just in case it might burn. There's always that chance. And also, if by some chance the head fell over, I wanted it to fall on something soft. But I think I have a plan so that the head won't fall, and I can bake it with the head not touching anything. All right, it doesn't really matter what the sprue is. We're going to cut the sprue off after we make the silicone baby. All right, so what I'm doing is using some small dowels, wooden dowels, and also I think I had a couple cuticle sticks just to make up 4 of similar length. And I'm just going to stick those into the clay of the sprue, not the head, but the sprue, so that they don't damage the design of the head. Now, something really interesting happened when I baked the head. The head itself came out hard, but where I stuck the wooden dowels, it's almost like the clay wasn't cooked at all. It was really weird. And that ended up being a problem in some other areas. And I don't know if it's because the wood was in it, like did that dissipate the heat? I don't know. It's very interesting why that happened. Or was it because it was surrounded by the fiberfill? But it was actually more up where the sprues were. So, up where the wooden dowels were. So, as you can see, I'm putting 4 in front, back, and on the side, so it won't tip over, hopefully. And that way I can bake it, and hopefully it won't fall over. You never know with this stuff. Like, it starts baking, and, the oven pops or some ridiculous thing happens, and then all of a sudden the head will just fall over. Which happened with my body. Not that the body fell over, but the feet fell off. Yeah, so lots of adventures along the way here. But so far I've been able to overcome my obstacles and continue this project. And hopefully I can share with you what I did in those instances. And if you have those problems, you may be able to overcome your adventures too. It's all just about learning anyway. So I did use this liquid Sculpting. Actually, that is liquid Fimo. I'm sorry. I've used Fimo before when I've sculpted figurines like dolls and things. I'm not sure maybe I like that better than this Super Sculpting. I'm only using Super Sculpting because that's what Carolyn Dowdy used in her videos about making the silicone baby. Really don't think I've ever used it before. I've used Fimo. I've used Primo Sculpting, which is nice. And then I've used some off-brands that are all too soft that wouldn't work for this. But I'm putting this liquid so liquid polymer clay over the eyes just because I feel like they're still transferring the color somewhat, and I don't want them to do that. And this will just dry clear. It won't dry cloudy. And you use this sometimes like if you're gluing pieces together or if you want to have a clear coating on things. So that's why I'm painting that over the eyes. I just want to help a little bit more to keep that color from transferring that I painted on with the markers. So just take a few last minute looks at your head and smooth out anything you want to smooth out, and we're going to pop it in the oven. And this clay says you bake it at 275 and you bake it 15 minutes for every 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and bake it for 30 minutes. It's definitely more than 1/4 inch in lots of places, but in some places it is. But I'm going to be baking it again when I put it on the body, so it doesn't matter that it's not completely cooked through. Now, polymer clay sites say you can bake it as many times as you want, but I have had issues with clay burning before. So, and it may be it's just the type of clay, but I haven't had that problem with the Fimo. The problem with Fimo is it's hard clay. Now they did have a Fimo soft that came out a few years ago, but I'm not sure if I like that better than this or not. I don't know. I may have to experiment with that again. All right, so we've baked it and we've got him out, and you can see he's hard, but up where those holes are is actually soft. The sprue itself was hard. I don't know. That was very weird. Very, very weird. So a little bit later, I'm going to have to go back and put clay in those holes and bake that again. I'll do that when I put the head on the body because we don't want to have those holes in the sprue when we're putting the silicone in. And like I said, you could use this sanding paper like that, really fine 3M, if you really want to tidy up some areas. So as you can see from all I've said today, we've got a whole lot more to go with this project. So make sure that you subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thanks, and bye.